Hello, Ikram. How's it going?
Hi, Stuart. It's going good.
All right. So, what are you doing in India these days, by the way?
Uh, I'm working for remotely with my the current work, which I mentioned, university work,
Yeah.
and apart from that, I'm spending some time with the family as well, with my parents.
Okay. So
Yeah,
the trip back to India is to try to just have some time with the family.
yeah, and along with that, my wife and kids are also moving to US, so the visa thing, which was due for them, I was also involved with getting the visa and their logistic arrangement.
Ah, yes. So helping out with that
Yeah,
stuff. Lots of
yeah. Yeah, that's done. So we'll be moving next month on 18th
Oh,
to
great.
Chicago. Yeah.
That's so exciting. So you'll be coming back with them together next month.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's so exciting. Wow. And so they're gonna settle down in Chicago. Is that the plan?
No, we are going to settle down in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I was just there over the weekend.
Oh, good. So it was some personal trip or some official work you was involved.
I'm just going to turn off our videos here to save some bandwidth. It was personal. I was dropping off my daughter at camp.
Oh, good,
My daughter
good,
goes
good.
to a summer camp. Yeah, up there. So I was it. I drove up there in 2 days. It took 2 days to get there, and then yesterday I just drove the whole distance, which was about. It's not too bad, but it's still a long drive. It's about 8.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah. So you're based in New York. From there, it's a eight-hour drive.
I'm based in St. Louis.
Oh, I don't know where the St. Louis is. So let me see.
Yeah, you can check it out. Yeah, St. Louis is in the Midwest. It's right in the middle.
It's in Midwest, St.
Yep.
Louis. I'm not familiar with
It's
so many.
south of Chicago, so it's
Oh,
southwest
nearby.
of Chicago. Yeah.
Chicago is, yeah, 6 hour drive from Minneapolis. So
Yeah.
maybe it's close by 2 hours further.
Yep. It's actually to drive from Chicago to St. Louis is about 5 hours.
Okay, good, 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 good.
Let's go ahead and jump into your resume. So I can see you've done a lot of work on it, which is great. And the first thing I always do, I like to see, okay, well, how many pages is it? What does it look like? The next thing I will say is in terms of someone being able to read this document, if I click on the font size for any of this text, I can see that it's a 10 font.
Yeah.
And that is going to be too small for the human eye to read. So I am wondering if you ever think you might physically print out a resume, if you would ever possibly physically print out a resume for someone to review, you'd want to have it at least an 11-point font. Now, this will cause your resume to become completely out of format, which is okay. But what I would challenge you to do is to be concise enough in your language so that you would be able to put this all onto a 11-point font. So with your permission, I will make a version that is at least 11-point font. So what I'm going to do
I will
here,
go with that. Even even initially it was 11 only, but because of the space constraint, need to be one pager and with so many experience.
yeah,
So my mentor suggested that I can go with slightly reducing the font size.
yep, understand. So yeah, I find, I mean, I think you could get away with that. And if you want to, like, if it's up to you. I personally find, I mean, you could send a resume that's 10-point font, and it's easy on viewing in a computer. But in the instance where it is printed out and reviewed and you're in interviews, that can be a bit of a challenge. What would you prefer to do? Would you prefer to stick with 11-point font or do 11-point font, or would you like to stick with 10-point?
So maybe what we can do, I got your point for the size, so that I will see later once we do other major work here on editing part, and that's formatting things. I can do it later and then share with you later.
Got it. Sounds good. So the next thing I would do is I always like to not follow the advice of the university and put my education at the top. I do not recommend doing that because that will cause people to be directed to areas that they don't really care about. Honestly, people don't give a darn where you went to school. They care, can you solve their problem? And so if the first bunch of text says that you're in school and, oh, by the way, you're from India, that is not as powerful as if they could see your experience first, which would be US based and investment related. So you don't need to hide anything about being from India or from another country. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying for the purpose of when someone reads your resume and spends 2 seconds on it, do we really want them to spend all this time looking through all of this stuff? My suggestion is no. So what I like to recommend is taking this to the bottom. Yep, introducing a professional experience, professional summary section, which basically here says that you want to work. You are an investments person. Basically, that's what this section is going to say. And then, so we have this in bold, and then at the bottom, we can introduce this information. This leadership and community involvement is okay, but we only really keep that stuff if we have space, typically. If it's significant, we can keep it in there, but again, people are not hiring you based on that necessarily. We can keep it in there for now. So now we've got this in, so professional summary.
So just on top, professor summary. So you mentioned in the bracket that you are an investment person. So what did that mean? Do I need to write para, something like that?
So this is results. MBA candidate. Successfully, consistently successful. Existing investment, corporate.
Stuart, I'm getting call from my parents' home. Just if you give permission, I just attend and quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. So, oh, and by the way, I just have to say this, just to be clear with you on this, it does add a lot of some layer of difficulty. I hope you understand that, to be job hunting in the United States when you are in India. You do appreciate that, right?
No, I didn't get you. Can you repeat again?
Oh, it adds difficulty to your job hunt when you are physically not in the United States.
Yes.
You are aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I have added here professional summary. Now, we're not going to include this part here, but basically this is the statement that we need people to know about you. And your university will probably say this is not necessary or is only applicable to people who have more experience or are experienced. However, I recommend this for someone even with no experience so that they are clear on who they are and what they do, and other people are clear on who you are and what you do. Now, I am going to basically say here that you are already an investment banker by essentially saying that you already do the things that help investment banks. namely consistently successful. So I'm referring to your experience here in the Venture Center as an associate mainly, but potentially also to this experience here, where you are assisting teams develop focusing on corporate finance. So you could say this is about ventures, or you could say this is about corporate finance. It depends who you are talking to. Corporate finance is typically a term we use for investment bankers, typically for M&A related work and underwriting and capital restructuring, things like that. But it is a term that can also apply to work you do in venture capital. So I would like you to emphasize that aspect of what you do. We could say venture investment teams here, but that's not really where you want to go. So let's pick the language that you most wish for yourself and which other companies, other banks will most appreciate. The other term I want to use here is P&L, to grow P&L, because at the end of the day, no one cares about anything else except growing their P&L. So the profit and loss statement, meaning the income statement, including to vet, source, vet, and close new deals. So that for me at the moment is what comes up for me in terms of what would be an appropriate professional summary. Now, we could use this extra space here on the second line. As you see, there's lots of space here. But at the moment, I don't have anything that comes to mind, and we can just leave that blank for now.
So what, just to check with one, including to source, vet, and close, what is vet?
Vet is due diligence.
Okay.
So if you were to come in here to source to vet, meaning to screen, essentially, if we go into synonyms, let's see, do we have synonyms anywhere? Let's see here. Fine, that's fine. But really, we don't want a comma. Synonyms, the synonyms here apply to assess or check, to assess or check. We could also say source diligence and close new deals. So that would be the same thing as performing due diligence, to diligence. But that's a little bit of a slang term. I like vet or diligence. Either one is fine.
Okay, fine with vet. Yeah.
And then what you might consider is actually introducing some lines here. So, so just like you have a line here, you can decide if you like it or not. But this kind of a line, this formatting here, we can also introduce a line here below this. If I were to underline this and something like that, or we could even extend it out like this. I think that might help divide things a little bit more clearly. We can see if we like it, and if we like it, we can stick with it, or if we don't, we won't. But the idea is something like this, where it's clearly defined, but again, we can decide later. Technology Commercialization Office, and then what I would do here is to emphasize, but not too much, but to emphasize your location as being in the United States, I would bring the location out here on the sign so people could quickly identify you as somebody being in the United States, having United States experience. So I'm going to bring this out there, and I recommend we just use the,
You're removing the state, Minnesota?
I recommend just using, I recommend just being, you can include the state, but I find it's pretty simple just to leave it like that. And then we don't emphasize as much the country location or the state location, but just the city. And then they can say, oh, okay, this guy was in Minnetonka, this guy was in Minnesota, this guy was in Minneapolis, this guy was in Kolkata. And we're not going to emphasize as much the country location. Again, at the end of the day, that's not going to decide whether you get an offer or not, but if we can do anything to remove space on the resume, that is a very good thing. So reducing text, giving more white space is a very, very good thing. So boom, boom, boom. And then I think because what you do is what we all do is globally applicable. So we don't need to emphasize the country location as much, because you could run a hospital in the United States if you really needed to. You would have the sufficient information, although the situation would be different. You would have the fundamental management tools to do that. So I recommend removing the country location. This people will, okay, Minneapolis, Minnetonka, et cetera, highlighting the role is fine. Would you be considered a venture center associate or a venture associate?
So it's a venture. So the top of it, that's technology commercialization office. It's
Yes.
have a venture center. I'm part of that venture center associate.
Right. So, but let's be clear, what is your official title? Because I have not heard of somebody being called a venture center associate. I've only
So it's
heard
more of a is a professional assistant, something like that, which they say officially on paper.
I would recommend you use the term venture associate.
Okay.
That is more common than, it's not clear what venture center associate necessarily means. Does that mean that you're assisting the center, or are you assisting them to do ventures?
Sure.
You could include center, but I think people will also appreciate that.
Sure.
Let's look at the other titles here. I'm going to remove that comma. Chief Executive Officer, Chief Executive Officer. And then the other thing that, let's see here.
And just on top of that venture associate,
Yep.
one thing which I need your help to write down, if you go on top.
Yep.
Not able to see.
Yep. Just wait a second. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So here initially, as I mentioned, that this is the work which I was initially doing, more of a helping them to come out and commercialize their ideas and business model. But later, once I met you, I started also working on their seed fund.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I started doing, which is not getting captured here in this one line. So if you think that I can add with the right word.
Yep. Yeah, we can. We will, for sure. So we are not actually in the section of working on the bullet points yet. We're going to get into that very soon. The other thing I would say is that although you have most of your experience in India, the audience for this resume is mainly the United States. So at the moment, so if we could reduce the number of bullet points allocated to the India experience and add more, like you're suggesting here, to add to the seed fund, that would be good, but not required. I'm sure each of your bullet points are very worthy and worth keeping, but that's just something to think about. Is when we think about the real estate, we think about this document as a piece of real estate, how do we want this real estate to be arranged? Do we want it to be focused on your experience as a chief executive officer in India, or if it's possible, can we add more bullet points to your experience in the US? Now, the next thing I will say is we need to work on your stories and your impact. The first thing that struck me when the first time we met, was your interest in having impact. And I thought that was very cool. Well, what I would recommend is we try to figure out more concisely what impact you could be having here in terms of numbers, So if you go into my training on the resume, and I don't know that you've had a chance, so just if you haven't, that's okay. But if I go into my training on the Career Accelerator program, I think recently you have been granted access. I have unlocked access for everything. So all of the modules, all of the weeks. I would encourage you to move into the resume training at your convenience, but actually doing this with me right now is going to give you most of the benefit or all of the benefit of watching those videos and even more, because you're actually going to get the results on the paper. And I do want you to spend your time talking with people mostly and focusing on that. So what we always do, and what I've noticed here about most resumes, and part of the reason is because of the templates provided by schools. So you might have spent dozens and dozens of hours on this document, but there was a mistake that was introduced without anybody noticing. Even the career coach at your school might not notice, is that they are teaching you to use a template, which is basically just saying action taken, and then action taken, and then action taken. And that is unfortunately going to hurt you in multiple ways. Most importantly, there's no result. There's no emphasis on results. And as a result of that, you don't have a story to tell. So what we need to do is we need to change your bullet point format to focus on, and maybe not all of them, results, whatever the result was, whatever that result was, by the action taken. Okay. And this is going to be a big shift from the school templates that are given to us and which most people teach. And the reason why most people teach action taken is because it's easy. They are not challenging you at all to actually dig deep and look at what the potential results or actual results might be. They're not challenging you enough to find that. So the result, which could be potential, perceived, probable, or actual results, should all be mentioned. And they should all be with quantification, as well as any actions taken should be with quantification if you have them. So let me just give you an example. Collaborating with researchers, right? So this could be, you could simply say collaborating with a team of 5, simply a team of 5. And researchers, really, this is just extra text that doesn't mean anything. No one cares if they're UMN researchers. In fact, we already know that they are at UMN up here. So this is just extra text. We don't need that. Team of 5, 2. And then so these areas are great, but to help get their inventions get commercialized, okay? What does that actually mean? Well, we're talking about various things, issuance of patents, it could be raising of funds, it could be forming of teams and things like that. So what I would really encourage you to do here is get deal focused. So what I would say is, kind of using this as the template here or model, what I would really encourage you is to become deal oriented in the way you talk about your experience. So under venture associate, there's going to be something like biopharma deal number 1 or company number 1 that you're working on right now. And then there's going to be something like then there's going to be med tech company, med tech, seeking, 2 million in startup funds, whatever that is, and then an associate bullet point. So really to start thinking about what you're doing there or did do, you might not be that active, you might be active, and maybe what you want to focus is the seed fund. So maybe you're talking about, the first thing you're going to talk about is the venture seed fund, formulation, and maybe it's the formulation stage or it's the management of 3 million venture seed fund, whatever that is. And then you have a bullet point. And this is, supporting, this becomes something like supporting or facilitated what I mean, and this is where it becomes work for the advisor or the counselor at your school, because they actually have to give a shit. They actually have to give a shit about you and what's going on with your business and the business that you're in. They have to take the time to give enough care to it. So, what is the actual situation in that venture seed fund right now? Did it raise any money or not? Is it so? Let me just ask you: does this venture seed fund have any money right now that you are aware of?
Yeah, they have.
Okay, how much is it?
I need to check that number, but I think that's more than this. I think
Okay,
maybe.
right. So you're fair. So what we need to do is get real damn clear real soon on the numbers, because if you want to work as a banker or in finance, and we're not talking about numbers, people are going to be aware of that, and they're going to know that you're overly general, underprepared, and aren't serious. That's the conclusion that they're going to make. Although I know that you are willing to be prepared, that you are serious, and that you are paying attention to detail. So, what is this number? So, no criticism at all, just trying to gear you toward the way people are thinking about these things. What is that? Okay. And then what is the thing that you are doing for them? Could you briefly describe it?
Can you repeat again? Because I was just looking for the number.
Yeah. What are you planning to do, or what are they doing right now on that seed fund? How are you helping them with that?
So they are getting me involved, exposing with different deal process, and they have also shared me all the due diligence, the documentation. So that's what initially I'm involved, but I don't know how things will move. So that's I'm still open to learn.
Got it. So, what would be good here is to understand. So, the task here is to understand their milestones, their desired milestones or goals. So, understand where they want to go here with that. Maybe you can just read emails to find out. Maybe you need to ask them what are their desired milestones or goals for the fund. Because if we can do something like that, we can say, assisting, maybe they're trying to raise new money, assisting closure of, $10 million new.
I think I'm getting 5.7 million. That's what they have invested till at.
That's invested, right? So then there's the distinction of how much they totally have to invest versus how much is invested. So, so what is the total capital committed? What are they planning to commit? Assisting to secure, new capital. What are they trying to do? Like, what is it? So is it new capital commitments or to deploy the capital, to structure the fund, structure a new fund? What are they actually trying to do there? Would be good to know so that you can speak about that at a advanced level. Because this is important, because if you're showing up on these calls with bankers and so on and so forth, you need to have a solid foundation or footing as a professional investor in which to communicate your experience. Well, currently I'm with the venture seed fund where we are deploying $3 million of capital, or $10 million, or we are trying to raise money right now, or we are structuring a new fund, which will focus on blah, blah, blah. We want to know where we are in that. So right now, in the management of the fund, what would you say they are doing and how are you assisting? So we want to find this results by action taken statement there. And it could be something like what I'm starting to write right here, assisting closure of 10 million new seed fund and that's the action, that is the result. Essentially, it's a potential result. It might not be actual, but it's one of these things. By, and then assist, organizing, let's see, by what are you doing? So what would be the action that you might be taking there in the closure of the new fund? By facilitating, by identifying potential new limited partners, and scheduling
So what they are saying that
Yeah.
they have 20 million fund for the seed capital and 50 million for the venture capital. I think they have not started the venture capital fund, but they have started the seed capital. So they have all the royalty of the university, which they are using and investing. So they are not raising the fund. They have sufficient pool of fund, which they are managing it.
Yeah. So whatever that number is, 50 million venture seed fund, what percent is invested? Just knowing something about that, like the percent already invested, percent uninvested. This kind of stuff would be good to know just for your own knowledge. So what would be this? What is the results by action taken statement? And maybe it's something like assisting to close. Or maybe it is redesigned strategy to deploy, 5 million in the med tech space by, whatever action. I'm just inventing this stuff. I have no idea. I'm not exactly sure what you're working on there. And so that's an opportunity for you to figure out. I recommend that you get very specific about, instead of saying, hey, I'm helping out these guys to do this thing, get very specific. What are you doing? What are you doing now to specifically help that seed fund? And then in terms of, mentioning that you're working in these areas to help inventions get commercialized, what are the actual deals that are going on now? So assisting a team of 3 founders, 2, and then, what is that result? What was that desired result by action taken? Okay. And then for the med tech, and this could be tough. Maybe you have to go back and understand actually what that biopharma deal is, or maybe there is no deal. Maybe it's just, company at this point, but they want to go, what is the next stage for that biopharma opportunity? And then with this firm as well, the med tech, if there is a med tech deal to be spoken of, what is going on with that med tech deal? And you just really want to pick the best one, the best 1 or 2 bullet points that you might share. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That just to check with you that, because in the company commercialization side, I've been involved with, I'll say, approximately 10 of these startups in different capacity and different help what they're looking into. So it's more of a helping them with some market research or some market industry understanding or analysis or something like that. So how to capture the 10 on these things, or I'm going to club some of these work and outcome. And if I have to club.
Yeah, if you've helped them, if you've done more, that's fine. But try to pick one where maybe they've had the best results, or you've had spent the most time, or there was an impact somewhere. So where has there been an impact? Somewhere, like in some of those firms, some of those firms may have accomplished more than others. Some of them will have won a pitch competition, or will have gotten had a funding event, or maybe one of them had a patent issued, something like this. I would really encourage you just to pick and choose the ones that you want to talk about, because when you do this job hunt thing, you are the one that is on that stage performing. You are the performer. You have certain lines, certain speech and behavior you want to display and share to influence the audience, influence the interviewers or the people you're talking to. So the benefit you have of working with 10 different companies is now it's your job to pick and choose which ones you want to talk about, which will give you the best result.
Sure.
So you need to think about what it is that you want to say. And that's why people in the career centers aren't going to give you this help, because they have an hour. You schedule the time to talk with them. They have about an hour of your time. Then they have to go talk to somebody else, and they're not really prepared to ask you tough questions, which is going to lead to a longer conversation. So go through this, start thinking about this, and then let's talk about that role again. Over here, again, I'm interested in results by action taken. So here, this is a descriptive term, and this does not tell, it could be useful for you to know. And I recommend this to appear on an early version of your resume, because this is kind of your storage or encyclopedia, or kind of a tracking. Your resume is kind of like a tracking mechanism to remind you of what you are doing. So it's kind of a reference document in some ways, but in more advanced versions of your resume, we really don't want to be using valuable space just to describe what the organization is. So I would remove this. If someone wants to ask you about what United Healthcare Accelerator is, they can ask you, but you don't need to volunteer that information. And then the result, whatever those are. So results by, and then action taken. So built partnership with different stakeholders. To launch Clinify Health pilot in Minnesota, improve health outcome. Okay, so what does that mean? So how big is this partnership? What can we say about it? So the question that comes from me is, okay, how big, what numbers? And then, so what is it? So the result is here. So launched. And then what is this, like 1 million launched? Let's see, health pilot in Minnesota launched.
What happened, Stuart, in this case, that I was there for, I think, 10 weeks. Yeah, 10 weeks with this one.
Yeah.
And by the time my internship was about to close, that meeting happened, coordinating everything, and later when I left, and then I rechecked, they were not able to take it forward. So
okay.
So how to say that I did my work and things moved in positive direction when I arranged for the meetings, but later when I checked with one of the partners, they said that things were not able to move due to some reason. So which way I should put my effort and results than overall the project? That's a big question for me.
Here's the answer. You explain what the potential impact would be, and that is your result. Even if it didn't happen, or even if it did not result in anything, You talked about you launched this health clinic project, potentially impacting 3 million residents, or how many it is, whatever the number is, you need to go find out. 20 million, 50 million, I don't know. By, and then what action? What does it mean to build the partnership with different stakeholders? That's not really very specific. So not that specific. So what did you actually do in building that? I'd like you to go back. I really don't want to take the time now to discuss that. I want you to go back and think about what it is that you did. What did you set up? Did you set up meetings? Meetings, write reports, what is it that you did? So part of the problem, I think, in you're struggling with this whole job hunt thing is that you're not actually quite clear about what you've been doing to the extent where you can tell, where you can brand yourself. It's very good that you know that you want to work in investment banking. It's good to know that you're going to be talking to private equity investors and venture capitalists. Now you need to do the work of actually structuring your branding. How do you want to show up on these calls? Again, are you a job wanter, someone who wants a job, in which case you're not going to have much of an audience? Or are you somebody that gets involved in these things and has an impact? So for someone interested in impact, as you are, I want you to be talking about your impact all the time. And I want you to find the language that will allow you to talk about that impact. Because at the moment, your resume, which is okay. I mean, this is how even the best resume coaches to these days are, I think, are leaving people uncertain about what their story could be by not really drilling down to find out what their impact was or could be. So I would say this is where we're going to be going, potentially impacting, then action. What is the action? And then design pricing strategy, relaxation mode, working. Yeah, so again, this is too much information. So that's great that you were doing that, but that might be part of a discussion if they get into the detail and ask you more about it.
So what to write? What action?
Maybe nothing. I'd like to see what you actually did here. If you designed a pricing strategy and that is a significant part of what you did, then what is the purpose of designing this pricing strategy? So result, whatever the result or might be, right? By, and then designing pricing strategy for Ruth Health. So, and what is this result? The pricing strategy. So result. So increased.
How to know just to check, just to know about the result. So yeah. Because I've already left, so how to track that result? What happened?
Ask them.
Okay.
So the result would be formulated international expansion plan for Ruth Health. And then what is this plan? Maybe it's 20 million. What does that 20 million mean? You can describe that when people ask you. Is it the 20 million, is that the investment that would be made, or is that the income or revenue that would be gained? What is that number? I don't know, but you can find out what is the vision for doing this C-section lactation plan design, what the pricing strategy, what's the vision there? What's the impact that people are trying to have there? Are they doing it just because they have nothing else to do? No, they have a very good reason for doing it. So what is the vision for doing that? I want you to describe that here. And if you don't know, that's okay. If you can, go back and ask the people involved, if possible, or read about what happened to Ruth Health. Read about it, ask people, find out. And then you can claim that result as your own, even if you had left the program, even if you just did it from October to December, that is still a impact that you had, which was assisting them to achieve this result by the work that you did. Okay, now let's see, built. This sounds better. I haven't even read the bullet point yet, but I like starting with this, built host centers, and then by, and then of course it would be by action taken, and then, right? Collaborative with contractors might be one thing. Built 3 rural health centers, supporting, servicing. Need some numbers in here, man. Top servicing, what is it? How many thousand? I don't know. What $1,000, 100,000 population? Using a low cost, high volume model for seeking behavior. This is good. But the benefits, promoting health seeking behavior. Yep, that's all really, really important. I'm not sure I'm going to put it in here right now, though. Built 3 rural healthcare centers servicing 100,000 population, servicing 100,000 using low cost model. Let's see here. Actually, I might keep that. Thousand by collaborating with design build teams over a period of 12 months. Goal to promote OC behavior. I'm not sure we keep it in there, but oops. Promote housing behavior, promote accessibility and affordability. We have healthcare. Okay. So impacted 100,000 people. Let's see, achieved financial stability. This is in 6 months. Served. Susan. Yeah, that's good. 100,000 is enough. That's enough for the high level. If people need more info, again, this is just your bullet points on your resume. It's not the whole story. So 5, I mean, this is okay. Develop strategic relationships with 5 international organizations and reach of health services. True. Is it the impactful statement that you want there? I'm not sure. But if we are going to be building out a lot of space here to focus on your deal making that you're doing now, we might not want to include all of this detail, which is in the past. So that's cool. Maybe it doesn't go here. Maybe we just keep this because you recruited and instituted continuous training programs. This could be cool. This could be good. Great. Maybe those 2 bullet points. And then in Kolkata, let's see, reviewed organizational structure. Okay, so expanded, tripled. Where this chart? See. Yeah, that's great, but I'm not so sure we need that. It's really good, really important, but you're trying to get a job in banking, and that happened 6 years ago in India. So I'm going to reduce that for now. Let's see here. Knowledge as 1 out of 10. Yeah, this is good, but putting that on your resume, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, if we have space, that's fine. But we need to think about kind of, again, we can revisit after you figure out some of this, then we can go back here and think about what you want to keep. Alchemist, and some of this information, I don't know that you necessarily have to have on your resume. I mean, this is going on 10 years ago now, so I don't know how important it is. We can think about it. Launched. Husband, 2 states, established. Yeah, that's all good. Access Health National. I'm not sure you need necessarily that's true, but again, just for the sake of space and text, doesn't necessarily need to be there. Access Health Internet. If it's called, if that is the name, then that it should be sufficient. Consultant.
Actually, I was part of the both organizations payroll, so I'm not sure which way to put it. And earlier, this Access Health International was part of Indian School of Business at the time when I was there, but later it got delinked, so I don't know which way to mention.
Yeah, and in fact, honestly, I don't even know we need this stuff from 10 years ago. I just really don't think that is that necessary. And you may not have time. So what is the result here? Yeah, so, some pretty big impact here, very good stuff here. But think about what would be the result by action taken here that you just maybe one bullet point, just pick one for this experience. And then we can go back later and look at what that's going to be. The rest of this looks fine. Again, this is important, very significant in your life. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be there, but could be. All of this looks good. I would take this out to the side here. Minneapolis. And then I would not have this on so many lines. I would just keep it like that. And yes. Scholar fun. And then this is okay, but again, it takes up important space. And I don't know that I mean, it's important. If you want to have it there, maybe you bring it onto this line here. STEM designated, I mean, that's not going to be what gets you hired or not. You can keep it there if you want. It's not a huge deal.
I agree.
Okay, boom. Let's call this MBA. Let's see here. Yeah, I would just get rid of all this stuff. It's just too complicated. It's just hard to read. Just MBA. Keep it. People don't. Okay, you're an MBA. Fine. You should know stuff. Again, this doesn't matter. It's great, very honorable, but I'm not going to keep it there. And let's see here. All right. Okay. And again, we might decide this just doesn't even go here because again, what you want to be talking about, you can take it out later or leave it in. We need to get this on one page. We want it to be 11 point font, and we really want to build out this section here as much as we can. So try to find, one bullet point, one bullet point here, whatever that's going to be. You're going to have one bullet point here. You're going to have one bullet point here, maybe for deal number 1. And then you're going to have another deal here. Whatever this is deal number 2. So we're just going to call this deal number 1 that you're working on. And then whatever that bullet point is going to be with the most impact, and we're going to call this deal number 2. Whatever that's going to be. And maybe you have deal number 3, maybe not. I really don't know at this point. But let's go with this. I'm going to save this and send it back to you. And why don't you just go back and start working on this section here, okay? Finish that, and then we can decide, how much space we have, how many bullet points there are, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think you can really reduce some of this information. Like, this is nice, but this does not need to be a bullet point on the resume. This section here, we don't need that. We need space, we need impact. We don't, and that's cool, but you can mention that when you speak to people, but it doesn't have to be on the resume. Yeah, I mean, and then of course, what we would like to do is take this and make it all at least 11 point font. And then of course that would, you can see if it's an 11 point font document, it's getting really, really long there. And so it makes sense to delete things like this experience from, 10 years ago. It does not have to be everything on here. It doesn't have to be every single experience. Sometimes, that's just too long ago. Even, yeah, I mean, that's okay. But again, this is also getting a little bit old and maybe not necessary. So just something to think about in terms of where we want to take this. So let me just save this. Do you have any questions for me?
I will work on it and then refine it and then share with you to see if that's coming in shape.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and if you have to have any conversations with people at these venture centers or all this stuff, no problem at all. Just call them up and say, hey, I'm working on updating my resume. I'd like and understanding my past experience. Could you help me understand what happened with the Ruth Center situation with the internationalization strategy? You can call people. You can also just research and read. Is there any kind of news that to share about a company? Maybe the Venture Center has a news feed, and recently so and such firm got some money. Those are all ways to research now what the results should be.
Sure. I will work on it.
Cool.
I think a lot of work is there, which I need to do it.
Yeah. So whenever you're ready, whenever you feel it's ready, when you think you've got your very, very best, as best as you can, next version of your resume, then send it to me and then we can keep working on it.
Sure. I will work on that.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your time with your family. And I'm so glad you're helping them to have such a big impact by being there. It's such a amazing thing you're doing. And so just try to it's hard, but try to manage, all of these processes going on at the same time, the calls, the research you're doing, the resume, and everything else. Try to, just try to do a little bit each day. And I think you'll be happy with the result, especially if you're running automation in a responsible way. You're literally able to be messaging people while you're asleep.
Sure. Just to know, okay, yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Stuart. It was great. I have another call. I need to hop off, and I'm grateful for all the insight. I will work on it further and get back to you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.